So because of a horrible tragedy that took place about 10 years ago, I learned something that you should do on every house you're looking at. So in this business, I get to work with all kinds of different people and meet a bunch of different people, and it's a lot of fun. And in this story, I'm going to talk about an older lady that we met. It was kind of sad that, you know, her husband had to go into a home, and they had a big, beautiful house that they hired us to sell for them. And then once we sold it, she wanted a much smaller place, like closer to town, closer to where he was staying, so she could visit him all the time. So we started looking around town, and this was back in the time where foreclosures were still kind of a thing, and there were foreclosures available. Not so much anymore, but that's another video. Anyway, we were looking around at some homes, and we found this great foreclosure property, and I had done a lot of work with foreclosures in the past. They were starting to wind down now at this point, but when you're looking at foreclosures, the way they work is when they are foreclosed upon, the people obviously have to get out, and then the asset management company will come in and they'll clean it up, you know, fix any major issues that are there, and then they'll deep clean everything and winterize everything. So when you go into these houses, they're really, you know, empty. It's like nobody's lived there for a long time. Everything's winterized, the water's not on. So anyway, we were looking around for homes and we found this foreclosure, and we went into it, and, you know, it didn't look anything, you know, it didn't look out of place. It looked like a million other foreclosures I had been into, and it was listed for a good price. So she liked it. Again, you know, it was the perfect spot for her. It was close to where her husband was staying, and everything about it was perfect. And, you know, we just, you know, when we toured it, it again was like any other foreclosure. You know, the power's off, it's winterized. I remember the smoke detector was beeping, and because it was so empty and it had wood floors and tile, that was echoing a lot, and it just, you know, a very, you know, sterile type house, which again with foreclosures, that was kind of the norm. So the story with these foreclosures, and, you know, just about everyone I'd ever been to, was kind of the same old story. Somebody was remodeling, or they lost their job, or whatever happened where they couldn't afford to make their payments anymore, and then it ended up going back to the bank. And that was the story with 99.9% of foreclosures I've been into. This one, again, because there's no one around, the owners are long gone, you know, the agent that had it listed didn't say anything, and so I just assumed that was the deal with this house, just like all the other foreclosures I've been to. And, you know, when we toured this particular house, the only thing that, you know, was, and I don't even want to say strange, but, you know, there was new carpeting in the master bedroom and new paint, which, again, like I said, a lot of times these foreclosures, people start fixing houses up and they run out of money, and, you know, it ends up going back to the bank. So with that being said, the lady liked it. We made an offer and it was accepted. And it takes a little bit of, you know, back and forth because the bank doesn't respond right away. But anyway, she got the house. We went ahead and did an inspection on it, and everything came up fine. Everything was normal, just going along like 100 other deals I've done. So the other thing I have going is I started long time ago, when it was first a thing, I started these Facebook groups in the area for, you know, Flathead Valley homes for sale or rent, and then I kind of have them all over the state at this point, but that is not the point of this story. But the point I'm trying to make is the deal was going on very smooth. Everything, you know, the inspection was fine, everything was great. Again, the other agent never said a word. So we get about 2 days from closing, and I decided that I'm going to do a little self-promotion, because that's what we have to do as realtors. So I made a little post in my Facebook group with a picture of the house and said, hey, I just, sold another house, and it was only on the market for, I forget, not long. We kind of found it right when it came on the market. But anyway, my ad was just basically, hey, use me. I got this house sold right away, and that was it. I do them. Everybody does those type of ads all the time. So again, nothing weird. Everything's fine. But then that night, after I posted it, I was checking my Facebook, and there's a message on there that says, wow, I'm amazed you were able to sell that place so quickly, considering what happened there. Well, you don't want to hear that. And you're like, oh my God, what do you mean, what happened there? So I private messaged the guy, and I was like, tell me what happened. I have to know. And he's like, oh, well, I figured you would have known, but about 1.5 years ago, there was a murder-suicide in that house where the husband, killed his wife in the master bedroom. Well, then it all dawned on me, oh, well, apparently that's why there's new carpeting and paint on the walls in the master bedroom. And I was livid at that the other agent hadn't told me this. And then, so I called the other agent and kind of laid into her, and she reminded me of the fact, which this is the point or the title of the video. This is the dumbest law ever, is that you don't have to disclose a death in a house. And again, maybe this doesn't bother some people, but in the situation I was in with this older gal and her husband in a home, and this was just not a good situation for this to happen. And so the other agent was like, well, Will, obviously we don't have to disclose this, and the bank didn't want me to disclose this. And that kind of proves my point right there, that if you don't want to disclose something because you think it's going to affect the value of the house or the sale of the house, well, that's the definition of why that should be a law. You have to disclose things here in Montana if it's an adverse material fact, which means, if the basement floods every year, or if the roof leaks, or there's a ton of mold in the attic, anything like that, you have to disclose because it affects the value of the house. Well, I've never understood how the scenario I just told you about doesn't affect the value of the house. Sure, some people, they probably don't mind. If they're getting a deal, they could care less what happened there before, but me personally, that would bug me. I wouldn't want that house. And so, again, now we're 2 days from closing, and I have to go tell this lady what I just found out, because I don't want her moving in and me not saying anything, and then having her neighbor knock on the door or see her out in the yard or whatever and say, hey, yeah, I knew the people that used to live there. Did you hear what happened? Or, whatever. That'd be a terrible way to find out after you've bought something. So I told her and said, hey, if you want to get out of this deal, now's the time. Again, we may would have had a fight a little bit for the earnest money and all of that, because all of the contingencies had passed by that point. But again, I think you can make an argument that that's something that, especially with this situation with this lady, that you can back out of. I guess worst case scenario, she loses her earnest money, but I didn't want that. But anyway, I went to her and told her about it, and she wanted to go ahead with the deal. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you're looking at a house, and this is, again, back when this was going on, Google was a thing, but it wasn't what it is now. It wasn't an adjective like it is now. Well, you should Google it. When I talked to the guy on Facebook or messaged him, he said, look it up in the paper. So I Googled it, and sure enough, there's articles about this tragedy that took place in the house with the address and the picture of the house and everything. So my point is if you're looking at a house, it never hurts to Google the address before you get too far down the road, because here in Montana, for whatever reason, you do not have to disclose something like that happened in a house. The only time you have to disclose a death in the house is if the house caused the death, like if the deck collapsed on the second floor and someone fell down and died, or a railing on the second floor broke and someone fell off, or something like that. But for whatever reason, a murder-suicide in the house, you don't have to disclose. So if that's something that would bother you, which it would me, Google the address and save yourself a lot of pain. Because could you imagine, you buy the house, you move in, you just spent whatever amount of money, it's not cheap to buy a house, and then you find that out? I mean, that's horrible. So anyway, that's my story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. And just remember, Google the houses you're looking at.
Thank you for watching our video. Please call, text, or email for more information. And don't forget to watch our other videos about Montana.